welcome to Season 6 of How I Made It Through. As I've said before, it is often through pain and suffering that we learn our most profound lessons. It is through courageously exploring the inner landscape of our lives and seeking healing that we transform. Joining me this season is my newest co-host, Bernadette Thompson. Bernadette and I invite you to join us, now twice a week, as we continue to explore the extraordinary stories of those who've had near-death and spiritually transformative experiences, or are simply wise and old souls, sent here to help the collective awaken and heal. Our show reminds us that death of the body does not mean death of the soul, and that indeed we do transition into the wonder of the afterlife and come back again and again and again. Our hope is that each episode will serve as inspiration for your own spiritual discovery. We thank you for joining us in this powerful learning and ask that you subscribe, comment, like, and share. Together, we can spread the growing awareness that we are all infinite souls sent to Earth School at this very unique and miraculous time in human evolution. Welcome, everyone, to How I Made It Through. As before, my lovely co-host here, Bernadette Thompson, gets to join me, and I get to have her as we honor our guest today, Stella Wilde. So I'm going to go ahead and read her bio, and then we're going to talk about all the good things astrology and tarot. So here we go. Stella Wilde is a cosmic pathfinder, intuitive advisor, and manifestation mentor. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Stella loves analyzing astrology charts and writing horoscopes, tuning into the tarot, studying psychology, interpreting dreams, and traveling both geographically and astrally. She also believes in taking charge of your life, of learning all you can about who you are, what your soul plan is, and how you can share your gifts with the world, because when you do, as she says, life is infinitely more joyful and you waste less precious time that we have on this planet. So once again, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Kristin and Bernadette.
Yeah, excited to have you here, just to hear all your amazing knowledge. And I think there's so many of us that absolutely love astrology and the tarot and all those things. And so it's always wonderful to hear somebody that really knows them.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to get into our discussion.
Yeah, let's get into it. So the show is How I Made It Through, and so much of what we talk about are soul's missions, blueprints, guidance to ascend, learn, evolve, heal. And you hold the recipe. You're like the translator for what I consider, and I spend time listening to people like you on YouTube who have this precious insight and serve as this cosmic interpreter. Let's start with astrology. Some people are going to listen to this and know so much, and some people will know so little. Why do you see it as powerful, and how do you see it as powerful?
Well, I see it as powerful because it can be a blueprint, a roadmap into your soul and into your soul's gifts, kind of like your soul map, your soul purpose of what you came here to do, learn, experience, explore. And your natal chart, which is a snapshot of the sky when you were born, right? Your time and place and everything, the day you were born, can give you just that. It's a tool. It's an interactive tool. It can be a sense of inquiry for you to look at different things, get to know yourself better. And then when you know more about yourself, your motivations, your gifts, your talents, you can have a more fulfilling life, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, for people who aren't as well versed, can you say a little bit about what's important to know, even just at a high level, about the natal chart?
Oh, sure. Well, you definitely want to know where your sun is. Most people know that, right? They know like the general, what they read in the newspaper or read online, back in the day, the newspapers, right? But what they read online for, okay, I'm a Pisces or I'm a Taurus or I'm an Aries or whatever. But there's so much more to it than that. That's like just the first thing. But then you want to see where your moon is, because those are your emotional motivations, and your moon might be in a different sign than your sun sign. And your sun is really about, it can be about a couple different things, but it can be about your ego essence. Kind of, it's like that kind of yang active energy, and it can be very tied into your soul purpose. Well, we can get more into that later, and then your moon is your emotional motivations, as I was saying, and then your rising sign, which is based on the time you were born and the place you were born. Your rising is kind of how you meet the world and how the world meets you. Depending on what it is, you could look at it as a different, an outfit that you put on. And it can be very telling of your physical appearance. It's connected with the physical body. So that's just in a nutshell. And the best thing to do, I think, is to kind of take and combine those three main things and kind of get an overall essence of who you are and your motivations. And of course, there's other planets and there's other things going on, but those three can really help you if you know those.
Okay. And what I've learned and that I've heard, which has been so fascinating, because I am a Taurus sun sign, Sag moon, and Aquarius rising. And so I'd always been just reading in the newspaper, um, Taurus, Taurus, Taurus. And then I would hear
Mhm.
some things. And I'm like, yeah, there's parts of that feel so true and parts of it just don't. And then I started tracking the Aquarius rising. And even just in the last year, it has felt so much more resonant. Like, oh,
Mhm.
so do you encourage people to, if they're going to read their horoscopes, should they do all three, or like how do they navigate even horoscope reading?
Yeah, I think so. And and the moon is also, I forgot to mention this, tied in with not just your emotions, but also your emotional stability and your home and your family. Right. So there's those things too. So depending on kind of what you're asking about, you might want to tune into which one, right? If you're short on time, you might just want to pick one depending on your
Yeah.
inquiry. Like if you're asking about an emotional situation, read your moon sign or listen to your moon sign. If you're talking more about public image, public persona, do your rising sign. If it's more about a goal you're pursuing, look at your sun sign. But the thing too is, which I didn't mention before, because now we're getting a little deeper here,
Good.
is your rising, of course, influences the houses in your natal chart. And
Mm.
that is where I think the real gold is, because and then there's different house systems, without getting too technical. And in my opinion, there's no right or wrong. Every astrologer has a different way of doing things, but there is what's called unequal houses and equal houses. So if you look at your natal chart as a pie, if you use the equal house system, the pieces of the pie are all the same size. Okay. If you use unequal, the pieces of the pie are different sizes depending on the mathematical calculations of where and when you were born. Okay. And the computer does all that, so we don't have to worry about it. Thank goodness, right? Math is not my strong suit. But so you can have different sizes of your houses when you use unequal. And I think that gives more nuance. So you can have, as an example, I have a very large second house and a very large eighth house, but my fifth house is very small and the corresponding 11th house. And that's just, based on when and where I was born. So looking at that and seeing if there's more planets in there, whatever, those houses and the themes of those houses then may become more important to you.
Interesting. Is that when they say degrees?
Yes, so there's 30 degrees in every house, but there sometimes can be overlap when you use unequal. And that's where I think it can get interesting because, like if you have your fourth house Taurus, right? But then it intersects a little bit with the fifth house, but most of your fifth house is Gemini, as an example. Like it can get interesting. Like, and if your Mercury's in the fourth house, where in Taurus, where you're very methodical, but your fifth house is kind of airy Gemini, which just wants to go like this, like all over the place. How do you reconcile the two? How do you work with the two? So I find unequal very interesting for many reasons, but it just gives more nuance, I think.
Yeah, more texture, more nuance.
Yes. But that's just me. Again, I don't tell anybody right or wrong and how somebody wants to do a chart. That's up to you.
Well,
But we got you here, so we're
yeah, I
interviewing
know.
you about what you do.
It's interesting. I didn't find out that I was anything but Libra, which is my sun sign,
Mhm.
until like 7 years ago. Up to that point, I only knew. I just didn't. I'd never been to an astrologer, and after my husband passed away, I just opened up to spiritual so much more, and so that's when I went to an astrologer, and she laid a lot of things out there for me.
Yes. So do you remember if she used unequal or equal, or?
I for some reason she might have used unequal, because I remember, I think what's the seventh house?
That's relationships,
Yeah.
partnerships, things like that.
My seventh house was like filled with everything, and it
Mm.
just kind of, made sense. But I could go back and look. So maybe the next time when you come on, I'll have it all ready. And I'll show you.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's so interesting, Bernadette. So how did maybe that shift kind of your view of yourself a little bit?
Huge, because my moon sign and my rising sign are both Pisces. So I'm Libra. And then she tried to explain it like Libra was the living room, but the Pisces was like coming in the front door, and coming in the front and back door is kind of what she was. I remember her saying. It didn't make sense, but
Yes, okay. So that's interesting. Yes, because of course with your rising is, like I was saying, how you meet the world. So you meet the world as Pisces energy.
Mhm,
But then your sun is probably in the 8th house. Again, not looking at your chart, but I
mhm.
would assume if you have Pisces rising, your 7th house is Virgo, and then your 8th house would be Libra. But depending on the degree, I would assume that your sun, Libra, is in the 8th house of deep mysteries, spiritual transformation, life's profound mysteries. So, yeah, so it fits, right, with what you're interested in.
Yes, hugely,
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
hugely.
And Pisces too. I mean, just Pisces energy in general tends to be drawn to the mystical because being ruled by Neptune and by Jupiter.
Yeah. And I would have to say mysticism, I am hugely interested. I'm like a Gaia geek, go on to Gaia and look at all especially ancient civilizations, and
Oh yeah.
um, that I had really strong. And this is somebody who was brought up Catholic, like, so brought up very, um, yeah. So it's
Mhm.
fascinating that I allowed this side to come out.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love it. So you're, as a Pisces, you're going to have big exciting changes starting in 2025.
Can you
Hope for
say
the
more
best.
about that?
Yeah. So North Node is going into your sign, which of course, we have to look at the North and the South Node together, but they're corresponding with the eclipses. And the North Node to me is kind of like a new direction opening up for you. And the South Node is kind of what you're eliminating, consolidating, kind of taking out the door. You don't need that anymore, or just regrouping with the South Node.
Mhm.
So yeah, so exciting new vistas will be opening up for you in 2025 and into 2026. And we have huge Pisces energy at the end of March. I think there's like March 2025, like 3 or 4 planets clustered all into Pisces. I think it's going to be an interesting spring. But
Huh.
yeah, lots of personal growth, new vistas, new horizons,
Oh,
We
that's
just
so
had
new
somebody
karmic
else on that
contracts.
said, are you
Mhm.
thinking the same thing, Kristen?
yeah, I'm loving this. I'm
Yeah,
loving
we had somebody else on the other day, and they said, and it was, they weren't an astrologer, but they were like, there's something about March.
Well, she said that to me for March.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something is happening in March, and I don't know, cosmically. And so I want to ask you, and if this is too demanding or cumbersome, but I love this idea of what's coming.
Mhm.
Is there a way to do all the signs to say what's kind of the energy or what's coming, or maybe choose a handful, or what feels
Um,
manageable?
I can speak to some aspects. This is all coming out in my book, which is going to be arriving in December.
Oh, I
It's
can't
called
wait to read it.
Perfect Timing. Yes. So I go through all the signs. I go through all the aspects. Everything's in there. It's almost 150 pages. So it's a lot of info, but it's for all the signs. So, you know,
Good,
and it also
good.
has a planning part in there. So every month you can see the main aspects and you can see the energies and you can check them off. And it has new and full moons. And then it has mantras for each sign and what the
Yeah.
energy is doing. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. I will speak in general to some stuff
Okay.
for 2025. Happy to do
Please,
that.
please.
First of all, it's a 9-year in numerology. So it can be a year of wrapping up different soul contracts, kind of really being with yourself spiritually and being introspective and figuring stuff out and kind of getting your spiritual ducks in a row, so to speak. Um, and really tapping into that energy of spirit and creativity and solitude, not in a bad way, not like people have to go be a hermit. We're not saying that, but just to really value the time you spend with yourself, spend more time with yourself in spiritual contemplation, to wrap up the last 9-year cycle, right? So that's very important. And also it ties in with Pisces, because Pisces is a very spiritual energy, and that North Node, heading into Pisces. So I feel like it's going to be a powerful year for spiritual alignment. And and especially you got to look at the Pisces area of your chart, right? So this is going to depend what house, like we were mentioning before, this is going to be going on for you with the North Node. And then also these themes of the 9th house, because Pisces itself is very much a sign of kind of karmic wrap up, because it's the last sign in the astrological wheel. Okay. So we have that kind of theme going on, but it's also like a positioning, right? It's like a positioning for what's going to come also in 2026, when we're in a 1 year and the North Node will still be in Pisces. So you want to make sure that your spiritual compass is aligned when we get into 2026, and 2025 can help you do that with that North Node in your whatever Pisces is for you, whatever house. We have Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, going to go into Aries. This is big, because of course it takes 7 or 8 years or however long for Neptune to travel through a sign. So I think that's interesting, because Neptune can be a lot about not having boundaries. It's a very creative, imaginative, gassy, floaty, ethereal type energy, which is good, right? We need that when we're diving into imagination and dreams and stuff like that. But now it's going to take on the flavor of Aries, which is, the warrior. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for defining and defending your spiritual boundaries. And because Neptune is so creative, I think it's going to open up, and this ties in with also Uranus and Gemini, it's going to open up a whole new opportunities, I think, for independent creativity and independent artistry, because Aries is the sign of independence and fresh and new and bold. And Neptune is, of course, about creativity, imagination. I mean, I think we're going to see the rise of indie filmmakers, as an example, that are using technology, AI and things like that. We're already starting to see it, especially when Uranus goes into Gemini, which will happen in the summer of 2025. And then Uranus and Pluto will make a lovely trine, which is a free-flowing, lovely, supportive energy in 2026 through 2028. And that will be the rise, with Neptune also in Aries, I think, of immense creative potential for, independent creativity, bolstered and boosted by the proper use of technology.
Oh, I love this. So to slow it down, because this is
I know
so
it's like a lot,
fascinating.
right?
It's a lot, but it's really riveting. So Uranus, to my understanding, that is like busting through the status quo.
The Great
Is that an
Awakener. Yes.
understanding?
The rebel,
Okay.
iconoclast, eccentric,
Okay.
genius.
I love it. And Aries is ruled by Mars, which is like warrior energy, like, right? So, oh my
Very
God.
assertive, very let's go get it. Yeah.
And then Pluto, like we were saying, I think even before we started recording, is sort of well, you say you have the words and I'm just
I
fumbling.
call Pluto the bulldozer of doom, because that's how a lot of people think of him, right? Because they're like, oh my God, Pluto, right? And people forget that there is the regenerative quality of Pluto. Yes, he at first will take things down and take them away if they're not any further use, or if they're toxic, or if they're just not good for us anymore, and we really do need to release them. But Pluto has a lot of depth to it. It's deeply transformative. It's not just like, oh, let me just change my hairstyle. No, it's like you're gonna kind of redo your whole thing here, So and Pluto with Uranus is a very powerful combination of deep and probably systemic change.
Fascinating. And
Or
so
change
Pluto,
societal changing. That's what I'm trying to
societally, and so
say.
speaking of which, so Pluto has been in Capricorn, and Capricorn, to my understanding, is all about rules and structures,
Correct.
and now it's moving into, for the next 20 years, as you said, into Aquarius, which is all about the age of Aquarius, ideas, innovation, thoughts. Can you
Yes.
say more, especially since it's gonna
Yes.
be there for so long and it's such a
Sure, sure.
shift?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. Pluto and Capricorn really showed us the underbelly of our institutions.
Yeah.
What is really not
Mhm.
kosher, shall we say. We'll just keep it at that. Okay. And on a collective level.
Mhm.
And many people kind of got very, they lost their faith in things they believed in for a long time because you see that underbelly. But
Mhm.
now what's interesting, it's with Pluto and Aquarius, the question is, what does it mean to be human?
Mm.
Okay, what does it mean to be a human being?
Oh, I love that.
And
Mhm.
because Aquarius rules the collective in again, in the astrological wheel, it rules the 11th house, which is all of us. Here we all are, okay? And now we have this great agent of change, Pluto, who's going to come in also with Uranus and Gemini, bringing in these massive upheavals with AI and technology and space and
Mhm.
all the Elon Musks of the world, and what's going on. And whether you're for that, against that, whatever, it's not going away. It's going to change society. And that's why it's up to us to decide, well, what does it mean to be human? Where do I fit in the scheme of this? Like, I don't want it to bulldoze me, to go back to my bulldozer metaphor.
Yeah.
I don't want it to bulldoze all the humanity out of me, but I also know that it's here. I can't escape it. It's going to
Mhm.
transform my society. So, what do I do with that?
I I get this feeling, and this doesn't have anything to do with astrology, but I get this feeling, and when you're talking about this, the feelings, just that our path to opening, that we're on both sides, and that we can use both sides. You're saying we don't want to lose our earthliness because that's why we're here.
Mhm.
But I feel like that we are this as things change. That part of the change is that those of us who are spiritually evolved are going to be able to use information from the other side to guide us in our, I don't know, that's just,
Yes, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, my whole thing is I don't like extremes. I try to find the middle way. I think
Mhm,
that is the important thing, and I don't think we should demonize technology or AI, because it has its uses and it can be very helpful for people to open up their creativity in different ways. But do I think that everybody should be running around with chips implanted in their brains? No, I do not. No, I do not. So, you know, I think that's another thing, like, that people have to kind of, maybe they'll help people get out of their kind of either or thinking about
Sure.
stuff and
mhm,
find a
Sure.
middle way, which I think is better. I mean, ultimately, we should be the ones in control of the technology, not the technology controlling us, right?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
is a tool. It's a tool like anything else, and it can be helpful, but it should not be a substitute for our own spiritual impulses, our own creative impulses.
Mhm. But also the marriage of the 2 can be quite exquisite if we were able to leverage that, recognizing our
mhm.
humanity, our creativity with the innovation that's disruptive, but ultimately could be amazing in terms of, medical technology or so many different applications.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we will see great strides in medical over the next 5-10 years. I mean,
I do too.
huge,
I do
huge.
too.
And that could be so healing for humanity. That's the thing. And that's why I get upset when people are like, no, it's all bad. No, it's not all bad.
It's
Like,
not all
let's
bad.
let's hope that the
Mhm,
people who are in charge of these things do it for the highest good of humanity. And that's the
Mhm.
other thing, because with Pluto, you do face the shadow.
mhm,
Mm. That's
So
very
let's
timely
hope.
right now.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
let's hope that the people involved in this stuff,
Mhm.
are doing it for the right reasons. Will be doing it to help humanity and not as some sort of, control mechanism.
Right, right. So I discovered you through your channel. So if you want to share a little bit about your channel, because it's so good. And yet I'm always wondering because you've got, so many followers. There it is.
Oh,
Your
thank you
new
so
channel,
much.
Stella Wilde. Thank you, Courtney. She's so good. Um, And you'll just say, I'm going to read for Pisces or Gemini or Capricorn or Scorpio or whatever it is,
Mhm,
knowing that there are huge swaths of people. They've all
mhm,
got very nuanced charts, different alignments in terms of the planets and the houses. Um, how do you encourage people to listen to a reading in awareness of that and knowing that it's not a prediction,
mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's insight? Say more, please.
Oh, yes. I'd love to say a lot more about that. Thank you. Thank you for
Um,
that question.
I bet.
Because I gotta get on another, like, hobby horse here, another soapbox. Yeah, first of all, it's never about me, and it's never about predictions. To me, predictions come from an ego. It's like sometimes I'll see comments, and no offense to anybody, but sometimes I see comments, on the channel like, "Oh, well, let's see if this prediction comes true," or, whatever. And I try to say it's not a prediction, it's how you use the energies. And that's the thing, right? It really is about giving information that gets you to stop and think about how it applies to your life. And of course, not everything's going to apply to your life, but maybe it will open up a source of self-inquiry for you to look at certain things or have an aha moment. I've had a lot of comments about that. Oh yeah, you said something that made me think of this, and I got the key to unlock the door to this problem I've been having.
Mhm.
Perfect. That's what I want. I want it to help people in practical ways like that. This is not about, my ego or something that I'm right about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be a conduit, a guide, have whatever comes through me, through to the channel to help people. Honestly, that is what it's all about.
Well, then let's pivot to tarot because tarot is
Mhm,
also, I don't know if you call it, I think of it as like very artistic and very spiritual.
mhm, mhm.
What is your relationship to tarot and how would you describe it to someone who's not familiar with it?
Oh, I love the tarot. It's just so fun. I mean, I like to say everything's a metaphor, right? And all the artwork, all the
Mhm.
archetypes, all of that with the tarot. I mean, it is a metaphor for our human journey in life, right? We start with the fool and we end with the world, right? The hero's journey is, or heroine's
Mhm.
journey is all through that major arcana and then through the other cards. I mean, it really speaks to all of our situations going on in life. But like anything, art is a mirror. And
Yes.
those pictures on the cards are a mirror that you hold up to yourself and you see not always what you want to see, sometimes what you want to see, right? Like,
Mm.
but it is, your connotations, you bring your connotations to that piece of artwork, your associations, the things you have going on in your life. And those intersect with the denotations of what the cards mean,
Mhm.
in quotes, right?
Air quotes,
If you
yeah.
went to a book and oh, the judgment means this. Okay.
Right.
you know, so those two intersect. Those two intersect. And it's an opportunity to have a reflective conversation with what's coming up in that artwork, in that mirror.
And what's interesting to me about it also, and tell me where I have misunderstandings, but as you as the one facilitating the tarot process, it's the shuffling and it's a lot of the intuition and energy that compels you to pick one card over another, or maybe your card will spill out.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about that space where it is much more of an art versus a science? Because it is for every reader, they're going to choose different cards. What motivates you to choose one card over another?
Well, over the years, I have developed, especially for the YouTube channel, I've kind of developed a system, which was in part necessitated by my cat, who sadly is no longer with us,
Mm.
Ariel, who used to lay all over the desk. So I couldn't put cards down on the table because she would lay all over them. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to have to hold up cards. I can hold up 5 comfortably, and that works for me. And then I was like, okay, well, the card in the middle, that's like kind of what's going on in your heart or in your head, in the middle. And then I just kind of developed my own way I do the 5 card. Now, when I do private readings for people, I don't always do that. I use a different layout. Um, but I find that in developing that layout or that system for me, that has worked well. And I forgot the other part of the question, but the other yeah,
Well,
you're
the
saying
other
the cards.
the
Okay.
cards, how do you know which to choose? Because I've gone to tarot readings and they'll lay out cards and they'll just say, "Just choose a card," and I'm like, this one." How
Mhm.
do you know which card to choose is what I'm asking. What is guiding that process or informing that process?
Okay, well, for me, like, this is not crazy, but this is just what I get. I get it in my ear. I will hear
Mhm.
something in my right ear and it'll be like, okay, stop shuffling now, or do this, or cut here, or whatever. And usually, not for the channel, but when I do personal readings for people, I do use different decks every time. Like, I'll kind of, before
Mhm.
the reading, I'll be like, I'll just be in a moment. I'm like, to kind of tell me what deck should I be using. And I
Mhm.
do have certain ones I go to for more like love questions or business questions, but I just kind of let my intuition guide me what deck. But the layout's usually the same. But then I'll decide, okay, if like I end on an ambiguous card like the Two of Swords, I'll be like, no, I need more information.
Yeah.
And then in the personal readings, like I'll also look at the bottom of the deck and I'll see, like I'll look at the bottom card and then I'll pull from, well, look what's under that too, which can kind of give me a sense of maybe how this is going to play out a little bit more in the future, or the potential for it. Because
Mm,
again, it's just a snapshot of the energies of the moment. It's
Mhm.
always it's not, this is what's going to happen.
right.
It's, this is a possibility. You can think about this. If it continues going this way, this may occur, but it can also be in flux and in change, depending on what happens next week or whatever,
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you give an example of whether it's tarot or astrology that a snapshot is created and it's an energy that guides insight of a real world application or choices or moments that felt like this was such a meaningful snapshot that a person, yourself or otherwise, used to in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of one one time. I remember how long ago this was, but I remember I just kept getting the 10 of swords, the 10 of swords, the 10 of swords, and in every reading I did, like for 4 or 5 days running. And I'm like, "What is this? What is this 10 of swords? Like, why? Stop it with the 10 of swords." And then, because it was something I definitely didn't want to look at, with
Mm.
a person that I was involved with at the time. And of course, the 10 of swords, the person's face is down in the sand. So there is a sense of not wanting to look at things. And then with the swords all in the back, right? Like feeling kind of trapped. And of course, energy of betrayal and whatnot, right?
Mm.
But it was definitely more the idea of I didn't want to look at the betrayal. And it kept coming up, coming up, coming up. And guess what? A betrayal happened again a few days later. But it kept
Mhm.
coming up. Is that my intuition, my subconscious, the guides, whomever kept bringing it to my attention?
Mhm.
So I would say definitely to anybody out there who's doing tarot, like you see things repeating like that, really pay attention to it. And then in terms of just, astrology, again, everything is an energetic possibility. And yes, you can look at your chart, you can see, where the transits are, like where is this planet now? Is it hitting my sun? Is this going on? Is what's happening in this house? And even with that knowledge, how it exactly plays out can still be a mystery.
Mhm.
And I think also we are not meant to know everything.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Okay. So you can be like, all right, I'm going to have an eclipse on my sun in the third house, a new moon. So there might be something that it's not just full moons that take things out of people's lives. It's also can be new moons, because new moons, we're in the dark. So a light can go out of your life at a new moon eclipse. Okay. And then the eclipse, of course, plays out over 6, 12, or even longer, 6, 12 months or longer, depending. But you can have an eclipse on your sun in the third house in April. And it can be like, okay, I know something's going to change. And then have 2 significant losses, but not see one of them coming. Just as an example.
Yeah.
But it's going to change your daily life because that's your third house. And also the other thing too is it's not always just one transit that indicates something may be happening. It can be multiple things at the same time, and I would say those are a more powerful indicator.
Okay.
So if you have like an eclipse on your sun, but guess what? Chiron's also on your sun, the
And
wounded
that's the
healer,
wounded healer.
the wounded healer.
Okay.
There can be something that could change in terms of a heartbreak. There could be something you're gonna be healing about your daily life and maybe losing a routine, or losing somebody who was part of your daily routine, and that may hurt for a while,
Mhm.
like something like that. I hope
Yeah.
that answered the question. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I know there's some language. I don't know what all the houses are, and I know that
Yeah.
transits are really powerful. I don't know fully
Mhm.
what that is. I do have a question that came up. So sometimes I'll go and look at different astrologers, and they'll be able to create your chart for you. You can just plug in all the information, and they'll create your chart for you. And
Mhm.
one of them in particular talked about the stage of the moon at the time of your birth, and
Mhm.
mine is a full moon.
Mhm.
Can you shed some light on what a full moon means versus, a crescent moon or any of the other lunar stages?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I am not that well versed in that in terms of when you're born.
Okay,
That's not what
fair enough.
I don't really focus on that. I'm looking at other stuff.
Fair enough. What
Yeah.
are some of the things that you look to immediately? Like if someone places a chart in front of you, what are the things you're like, first look here, just to say,
Okay. Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, you look at well, this is what I do. I look at it with soft eyes.
"Hmm,
It's kinda like, "Where's Waldo?" Right? It's kinda
mhm,
like looking at it and you're like, you gotta you can't just be like this, but you gotta kinda look at it in a Neptunian way
Mhm,
and this is how I work, and intuitively, and there is inevitably something that will leap out at me first, and it's not always what you think it would be.
mhm,
Like, I don't immediately go, "Oh, where's the ascendant?" I don't do that. I just like, what am I seeing? And like with my intuitive eye, I guess my third eye, like what's leaping out at me? And that's where I start.
okay.
mhm,
So I might see, unfortunately, some people have a grand cross in their chart. That usually leaps out pretty quick.
What
Okay.
does that mean?
Yeah,
So
what is a grand
literally, if you look at your natal chart, the planets, they make aspects. And when you do your chart, you'll see lines going through,
Mhm,
because it's like, is there a trine? Is there an opposition? Is there whatever? So when people have a grand cross, they have a planet here and a planet here, it's opposite. And then on the other side, they'll have a planet here and a planet here opposite, forming a cross.
mhm,
And some people say that that's kind of like a cross to bear, so to speak. It can
mm,
be a challenging energy. It doesn't mean somebody's doomed or anything like that. Okay.
yeah,
I don't believe in all that. Like everybody, I like to say, everybody's got something. Everybody's got something
Mhm,
in their
we all
chart that's a
do.
little, oh gosh, I got to deal with that. Yeah, you do. Okay, but the Grand Cross can be a little more challenging. Let's just be honest. It can be because when you have oppositions, it's like I was saying before about, trying to find a middle way, and people are like, it's either bad, this way or that way. And that's the
mhm,
same thing with the opposition. It's like you want to favor this one, but you're forgetting about this one, and they're tugging at one another, the planets. So it's trying to find that balance, the middle way between the two of them.
Got it.
And then you're going to have in a grand cross, you're going to have two more over here. So now you got to deal with that too. So it's a delicate negotiation of balancing these four planetary energies. That's a lot.
That's a lot to
It's
deal
a
with.
lot.
That's a lot
mhm,
to deal with. Since my question before about let's go through all the 12 zodiac signs is a little daunting, with your permission, and if the answer is Kristen, no, I absolutely honor that. But with the two of us here,
Mhm.
maybe can you say a little bit about we know Libra, Pisces, Taurus, Aquarius, Sag. Is
Mhm.
there little tidbits that you can share with us?
Oh, sure. Well, let's start with Aquarius
Okay.
because Pluto has just gone into Aquarius. So, the next 20 years have the potential, again, it's always potential, to be the most dynamic and life-changing time of your life. And depending what planets you have there or placements you have there, that's, and the house, right? But as a rising Aquarius, it's going to bring up a huge identity shift. So, and it's very much about stepping into your power.
I love that.
mhm,
Okay.
I feel
So,
that.
yeah. So you probably have Scorpio as your let me think here. I don't want to get my houses screwed up. As your 10th house of career.
Yeah, I do.
So
Yeah.
Pluto rules Scorpio. So this is good because you got to look at where, what planet rules what chart, what house
The
in your
house.
chart. So there's going to be opportunities for you to let go of any type of misalignment, inauthentic, whatever, with your identity vis-a-vis your career, and really going to the next level. It's really about empowerment. It's about stepping up and making those necessary changes that you do need to make. There will be change. Like, you can't get around it.
Yeah.
Like, there will be. And with, fixed energy of Aquarius and Taurus in your chart, fixed energy is kind of like to just have things, go along smoothly. But you got an adventurous moon and Sag. So that you can maybe roll a little bit more with changes better than just with your fixed energy. Okay. So, but that's what it'll be for you. And there can be, powerful changes in how the world is seeing you. Because remember that rising is how you're showing up, how you're showing up and how people are experiencing your energy. So, yeah, but it will really help you get rid of anything that is not truly aligned with your highest good and your highest purpose.
I feel that strongly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Pisces. So Pisces rising, Neptune's going to go into your second house of money.
Is that a good thing?
So, okay, so let's discuss that. So it can be, right? Because Neptune's your ruling planet. But one of the things you're going to want to do is be very aware of your monetary boundaries. Really always monitor your inflows, your outflows, because Neptune can be a little foggy, nebulous, right? It's kind of here one day, gone the next, like, type thing. So you have to be really zeroed in and track your money. Okay, because you don't want it to just, like Neptune, it disappears. That being said, the way you can increase your finances is by stepping into all things Neptunian, which is spirituality, abundance work, anything to do with imagination, creativity, poetry, film, the oceans, all the Neptunian things. And then also taking a very bold approach to those things and starting new things. Okay, with that energy, because that's Aries. So being self-employed or starting a side hustle, if you have Pisces risings, applies to anybody with that second house Aries. But Neptune and money, you have to monitor it very carefully.
Well, which is okay, because I've never been a spendthrift. I'm always kind of that way.
Right.
So.
Right. But this can be like, this is not about spending. This can be like somebody hacks into your accounts.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like all of a sudden, like, it's there one day, you think it was there, and then where did it go? Like scam, because Neptune can be about deception. So you have to be careful of any type of weird, especially with all this technology stuff that we've been talking about, weird, smishing and smooshing and, the text messages, and you think it's legit. And then next thing you know, you lost all your money, like that type of thing. And this is not to scare anybody. This is awareness.
Yeah. It's
right?
like what we were talking about before, like AI. It's just understanding it. And
yeah, because Neptune can be deceptive, illusory energy. And you just got to be aware of that, because every transit, every energy has a really positive, great, manifestation. And then there's one you just got to watch out for. Just be on alert.
Good.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If you can believe it, time is flying, as it tends to when we just get going. It just goes so fast. Is there anything we haven't yet asked, either about the collective, the energies you're reading, or anything else that you'd like to share as it relates to these passions of yours?
I just encourage people, like, if they have any little inkling, like, oh yeah, that's interesting, or I'd like to explore that, like, follow it. Just start reading it for fun, and maybe take a lighthearted approach to it. I think that's another thing too. Use it, like I said, as a means for self-inquiry, self-knowledge, and just like, oh wow, that's cool, and just enjoy it, because sometimes, I think, we don't want to give our power away. We don't want to give our power away to a prediction, in quotes,
Right.
Or, this transit's happening. Oh my God, I have to hide my head under the covers. Okay, no, like that's I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But use it as a means to just foster greater awareness with things, and that can save you a lot of time, money, energy, and then you learn more about yourself, and you're like, yeah, this is not feeling right to me. I'm thinking about like this transit happening, and this is not feeling right. Okay, I'm not going to do that, and kind of understand what's maybe going on in the sky and how that relates to how you're feeling. But you're the ultimate decision maker, right, of what you're going to do with the energy. But it can be a powerful vehicle. I really would hope that a lot more people would be into learning more about themselves, really, because that's where it all starts.
Exactly. Exactly. So how do people find you? And, Courtney put up your channel, but I want you to promote yourself because you're really extraordinary. Your book, your channel, private readings.
Oh,
Where do
yes.
they?
Okay. So I am on YouTube at Stella Wilde. I also have a Facebook page at Real Stella Wilde. I do a little tweeting, not too much, over on X, also at Real Stella Wilde. And you can find me at my website, stellawilde.com. And I do offer private readings, tarot, astrology, natal chart readings, all of that type of thing. So.
Well, you're captivating. You really animate it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anything else, Bernadette, before we?
Well, what I was thinking is that, I would love that you were sharing both about astrology and then tarot.
Mhm.
And, it is fascinating as being somebody that so loves all things spiritual. It's, it's like we kind of use both of them as we go through our lives. Like you were saying, like with it, don't worry about a prediction if it's coming, if you get the card, like it's not necessarily prediction, but information. And so
Mhm.
I love that that there's so much information for people to understand that our spirituality can really be, what's the right word, but opened up by knowledge, learning more about astrology, learning more. I always feel like I need somebody to do, tarot for me rather than me trying to do it because I
Mhm.
feel like I don't have that knowledge. But yeah, so I thought it was wonderful. And I'm looking forward to your book coming out. And so very happy.
Yes, thank you. And I would say too, like, just I don't want to take up too much time, but journaling is huge. Like even if you don't know what a card means, you can look at the picture and just write a few lines in a notebook and say, yeah, I'm kind of feeling this way. I was kind of thinking about this situation in my life. I pulled this Ace of Cups with this beautiful hand with this chalice, and yeah, and maybe it's making me think I maybe should expect more from the universe, or I should give myself a little more self-love with this situation. And maybe if I just tap into the flow a little bit more instead of and just like if you're like whatever that image is suggesting to you. And
Mhm.
if you're wanting to learn tarot, that's a great way to do it too. But
I want to say something here, and I know we're like going into wrap up mode, but this brings up with what for Bernadette and for me, and the purpose of this channel is opening up avenues for people to connect with their spirit guides, their intuition, their higher self. And I know for me, it can feel just so overwhelming and expansive where to start. When I hear you describing it that way, to see a card, it feels like the vehicle for communication to come through as I go into my creative imagination or my gut as that card speaks to me. So for me, that just ignited an important flame
Mhm.
in this
yeah.
whole process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it goes back to what you were saying before, Kristen, about, well, why did I choose that card?
Yes.
Mhm.
Right? So if you're doing, and
Mm.
that's one of the best ways to learn. And even if you don't want to learn tarot, but if you do want to learn, one of the best ways is to do a card a day or a card
Mm.
every other day, whatever you can fit into your schedule. And you don't have to do it for very long. You just, kind of let one pop out. And then what are you feeling when you see the images there? And you can use different decks every day. It doesn't matter. You don't have to stick to one deck.
Mhm.
And as that, and again, it's popping out, and then what is your intuition telling
Yes.
you about it? And if you and the important thing, I think, is to do that automatic writing, is to not go in your head, but just start
Mhm.
writing. Yeah, this hand coming out of the sky with this cup, like, yeah, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. I need a cup. I need some flow and love coming to me in my life or whatever, you know, and just not like going up here, but going into here and just letting it flow
So
with your
good.
pen, you know?
So good. So good. All right.
Yeah.
Stella, so appreciate you. This was so much fun. And we're just so appreciative that you chose to spend your time with us and share with our
Oh, it
audience.
was so fun. Thank you both so very much.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.